This is Walking in the Word Radio on AM 570 and 102.3 FM The Mission, WMCA.
Welcome to Walking in the Word. I'm your host, Dr. Joel Grassi, pastor of the Commonwealth Community Baptist Church of the Bronx, right here in New York City. And you can reach out to us on our phone number, 718-839-1000. And you can also message me directly through our website at commonwealthbronx.org. That's commonwealthbronx.org. And you know, I give this message out on each one of our programs, and I'm so thankful for people who have contacted us over the course of the program's airing. And some have shared prayer requests, some have reached out about different book giveaways that we've had, and some have asked questions. And so today I thought I'd answer a couple of those questions and also talk about a new aspect of our radio program that I'm excited to mention, as well as introduce you to someone who works behind the scenes to make every episode just exactly as stellar as they are. And so the first question that came in was from a listener who we'll call M, the letter M. And they shared with us the question, which probably many people have had over the years. You may have an answer yourself, but it basically concerns what was the fruit that Adam and Eve ate in the Garden of Eden? What exactly was that they ate? And the person had asked if it was an apple. You know, they'd been hearing that it wasn't really, in fact, an apple. And I would simply answer that question by saying, you know, it may have been an apple. We don't know. The Bible, in fact, does not say what the fruit there was in the Garden of Eden, as Adam and Eve were forbidden from eating it, and then, of course, they were tempted and did eat it. But what I will say, a couple interesting points to bring out about this. Number one, we do use the word fruit in kind of a general sense, you know, that which is produced, produce. In fact, it even reminds us of Cain and his offering later in chapter 4 when he brings the produce, or that which he produced in the work of his own hands. The word behind fruit, the Hebrew word behind fruit, is the word peri, which is actually where we get our English word pear from. A pear is a fruit. And so I have sometimes surmised, I wondered if the fruit there could have been a pear, if the original fruit there in the Garden of Eden was in fact a pear, since the Hebrew word is where we get our word pear from. Another interesting theory that sometimes comes up in relation to what the fruit actually was is that, you remember what Adam and Eve did as soon as they ate the fruit? Their eyes were opened. What's the very next step that they take there as they are aware that they're naked? Is that they made to themselves aprons, clothing, of fig leaves. And so some have wondered if maybe the closest thing they could grab, since they ate this fruit, they start grabbing the leaves on the tree, and was it a fig that was the forbidden fruit? So there's a couple interesting theories as to what it maybe could be. Again, the short answer is we just don't know. We know it was the fruit of a tree, and it may have been an apple, it may not have been. But concerning whether or not it could have been an apple or if it was something else, you know, some have wondered, well, was it just an apple because that's kind of the fruit that you first think of when you think of fruit that grows on a tree? And I think that may be part of it, but this is an interesting thing that I read when I was, and I'm going to be writing a review of this book by Carol Myers called Rediscovering Eve, Ancient Israelite Women in Context. This will be up on our website, and then hopefully by the end of the year. But she makes an interesting observation here concerning the Latin aspect of this, and she notes that the word, when in the Hebrew Vulgate, the phrase for good and evil, it's bani et mali. And so bani kind of reminds us of our word bonita, or the French word bon for good. That's the word translated good. And the word translated evil is mali, and that's from the same root word malum that the word apple comes from. And so if you in Latin wanted to say bad apple, you would say malum malum. It's the same word for bad and for apple. And that very popular translation, well over 1,500 years ago, the Latin Vulgate, or Vulgate as it's sometimes called, that was probably the Bible of the day back in those dark ages of Christendom. And the word for evil and the word for apple are from the same root and sound identical to the naked ear, as it's called. And so that might be where that word, where that idea rather came from, the apple being the forbidden fruit. So that'd be our answer. That's a good question. Something that we do try to think about as we study those passages back in the book of Genesis, which we love to do here on Walking in the Word. So we don't know exactly what the fruit was. We know that it certainly was something that Adam and Eve would have been familiar with, and that ultimately it was the Lord's prohibitance of their eating it that they disobeyed when they were, in Eve's case, she was deceived. In Adam's case, he was not deceived. He rebelled, and they both ate the forbidden fruit. And if you wonder why there's so many problems in the world today, it all goes back to that moment there in Genesis. So thank you for that question. Another question that came in, and this is one that I've dealt with as well before, but I thought it would be good to bring up here on this episode of Walking in the Word as we head into the holiday season, is concerning whether or not it is prohibited in the Bible to pronounce God's name. And this question comes up from time to time because we may know some of our dear Jewish friends or some of our other friends from other traditions who kind of make it a practice not to say the name of God as it is spoken about in the Bible. And we're talking specifically about what we call the tetragrammaton, or those 4 consonantal letters of Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey that begin appearing in the Old Testament, as we call it, in Genesis 2:4. This is the first time that we read this word here. I'll just read it from the King James Version. It says, "These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created, in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens." And so that's the first time that we've got that phrase in the Bible, the Lord God. And in our Hebrew Masoretic text, we would see here the first appearance of these letters, Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey, or what we would say is a Y and or a J, and then a H, a V, and an H with the vowels there. So this is where our very well-known word Jehovah comes from, and that name does appear in traditional Bible translations. It's in the King James Version. We probably got some friends or neighbors or acquaintances who identify and call themselves Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's where they get that title from as well. And then, of course, the more recent and kind of has gained some traction in the last couple centuries has been the idea of pronouncing it as Yahweh. And so I would just go back to the original question, does the Bible prohibit pronouncing God's name? And the short answer is, just like it doesn't identify the fruit, it does not prohibit the pronunciation or the stating of God's name. In fact, there's imperatives in the Bible that tell us to call on the name of the Lord and praise His name. What it does do is it prohibits, obviously, taking the Lord's name in vain, or what we would call blaspheming the name of the Lord. But in reality, we are not prohibited from using God's name. I do think that the most biblical pronunciation of it would be our traditional pronunciation, Jehovah, and not this recent one that really goes back to a fellow by the name of Wilhelm Gesenius. He was a 19th century German scholar who put forth the theory that the name should be pronounced Yahweh. and that is kind of a more modern theory. And there's a whole lot of research you can do on this. To the caller and to anyone listening who had a question about this, I want to refer you to a really good article. I've referred to these people before, the Trinitarian Bible Society. The Trinitarian Bible Society, their website is T as in Trinitarian, B as in Bible, S as in Society, and then the word Bibles, tbsbibles.org. They've got a tremendous article there that goes into the history and the theology behind why Jehovah is the correct pronunciation and not Yahweh. And really, there's no scriptural evidence for calling God's name Yahweh, and the idea of calling it Yahweh was kind of a recent idea with no real biblical evidence and misses the theological meaning of it. So, to those who are asking about this question, we want to obviously revere God's name. We want to cherish it. We want to honor it. We want to be very careful not to take his name in vain. I know this is something that we can, as imperfect people, as sinners, we can slip and do from time to time. We ought to ask the Lord not to help us not to do that. And at the same time, we don't need to necessarily avoid pronouncing his name. I know, again, in our traditional translations, like the King James Version, there's nothing wrong about putting in the words "the Lord" for the word Jehovah. We do that all the time. That's where the practice of saying Adonai comes from as well. And some of our friends might actually say Hashem, which is the Hebrew way of saying the name. But I would simply say that we ought to just revere God's name, be careful in how we use it, and honor it. But there's actually no prohibition in the Bible that prevents someone from using God's name. And so this is what we endeavor to do here on Walking in the Word, just to kind of help us to walk in the Word, to equip us with biblical answers, to live lives that count for eternity and that are different. And I wanted to close out this episode today with some big news. We're thankful that we've been kind of teasing this for a while, but we're going to be on some podcast platforms now that we haven't been on before, so you'll be able to find us on a number of these platforms. And I've mentioned that there's a man behind the scenes here who makes every one of these episodes just sparkle and shine. And so it's my privilege to introduce you to my producer and the man who makes everything happen here at Walking in the Word Radio, and that's my good friend Alex Garrett. How are you, my friend?
Well, firstly, happy Advent. This is going to be Advent season coming up. So you mentioned holiday season, Advent season, and as far as your podcast being this further reach, what a perfect time during Advent, right? To be on Spotify, to be on Deezer, to be on Odyssey. I mean, what a way to get your reach out there right in time for the Christmas season.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely. I mean, this is the time, I think, when all of us, we're doing so much, but we need to tune in, focus on what really matters, and that's what we try to do here at the show. And thanks, Alex. Alex really, when I come in to record my show, and I like recording it in studio, I like to do it live to track, as you might call it. And Alex, I mean, he's behind the scenes doing all the technical stuff. And I
have to say, we love your partnership with WMCA and that we're able to put your message out there even wider now than maybe before. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, being from the generation that I'm from, I'm not like you younger guys who know all this stuff immediately right out of the bat about the podcast. You know a lot about podcasting because you have a very significant podcast as well that I'd like you to tell our listeners about.
So I have a show called One Leg Up with Alex Garrett, where we're hoping to have people have one leg up on life, help people have one leg up on life, and we're talking about your skate park on my show now. I mean, it's been a great collaboration, but one of the things we focus on is not only faith, but accessibility. And what was the first question I asked about your church?
Yeah, when I invited Alex to visit our church anytime, and the very first thing he asked me is it accessible? And
which I think is such a valuable question to ask, because it is something that we all need to know about in New York City. And you would think the city's so accessible. As we both know, it's not always accessible for us.
No. I'm so thankful that our church building is equipped with an elevator lift that goes to all three levels. But if you come to our St. Lawrence station, unfortunately, right off the 6 train, it still does not have an elevator. I know they're putting one up on Parkchester, but that's got to be a challenge when you need accessibility to have to look and see which stations have it and which don't.
And that's why this reach of your podcast going beyond the station website is going to be so huge, because you're making it more accessible for people now, if you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you're bringing this topic of accessibility in New York to the forefront, who are the people that you're trying to hope pick up on this message and can maybe run with it?
Well, I think they're just, of all the New Yorkers in the city, you want to focus on the people with disabilities. You want to focus on those who may not even know there are resources available, because there are people that just don't know, hey, Independent Center for New York people with disabilities in New York, that's a network, a resource. I mean, there's so many different outlets out there, but we got to bring them to the airwaves, because if we don't, there are people that may not know resources are there for them. And it also shows you can reach out. I feel like some people with disabilities are so, and maybe find that in the faith space too, are so afraid to ask for help because they don't want to look they don't want to be feeling shamed about it, right? But here we say, no, there's outlets you can ask for help anytime. And I feel like you're the same way with your church. You have people asking for help and reaching out all the time, right?
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's all about trying to, make things better in this world that's so crazy right now. So many challenges, more and more going on. You mentioned the skate park. One of the other first things I noticed about Alex is that you are a roller skater, a rollerblader.
Oh, I love rollerblading around New York City. Now, I do it on one leg and crutches, so that's kind of the plot twist here. But when you mentioned skate park, my eyes lit up. I'm like, yes, we got to get that endeavor going, because another way to bring accessibility, to bring kids out of a dangerous zone, you bring them to a skate park, I think. So.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a good thing. I mean, we're so heartbroken when we hear about subway surfing, or we hear about all the problems that the youth are facing,
and a skating pastor. I mean, what a thought, what a concept.
I know. I have to say, I was a skater before I was a pastor, and then it just never left me. And I probably took the hardest slam of my life this past year. It knocked the wind out of me and reminded me I'm not exactly 15 anymore. But yeah, it's great to be a skateboarding pastor. And I tell people, whatever you are, be what you are to the glory of God.
And look at Greg Laurie. He's got motorcycle after motorcycle. I mean, he's a motor guy.
Oh, does he? See, I didn't know that. Okay, yeah, I guess everyone's got their wheels that we've got to get around on. And, New York is such a commuting and transporting city that we've got to keep those options going. Now, what are some of the things that you're dealing with on your podcast during this Christmas
I want to also
season?
say, I believe your show, you can hear all the way back to when you first were with us, right, if I'm not mistaken. So
yes, we're going to be uploading all of the back issues, so to speak, the back episodes, and I want to be getting the titles of all of them as well up on there so you can see what each episode was about. And so these are Odyssey, Spotify, Deezer, Ghana, I hope I'm saying that right, iHeart, and Amazon Music.
And Walking in the Word Radio, I'm pretty sure is the way to go about finding you.
Yeah, I think it's still going to be called the same title. Probably see my same picture on every one.
And you asked about the issues. I think the big thing for me is all election cycle, right? We heard about the affordability. But Dr. Joel, did they mention anything about accessibility under a new administration? I didn't hear one word about accessibility.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I'm talking about. I guess, like they say, speaking of wheels, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So, I mean, this is really something that I think we all need to be advocating for. I take it for granted that every day when I get home, I can get off at my subway stop, walk right down the stairs, and I'm home in a few minutes. And for people that need accessible subway stations, it's a completely different experience for them. And we need to bring that up to our elected officials so that we can see more change in this regard.
Absolutely. All right, I have to ask you this. Now that you have a bigger reach through the radio station, through WMCA, through all these different outlets, will you change the way you do it? Will you make it more, how do I say, a little bit different knowing that you're on all these platforms, or will it be the same kind of content that you're going to give us?
I think it'll probably endeavor to dig even
more expansive. Let me
more
try and say
expansive. I'll try to dig even deeper into some of the details of the word, because I think that we sing a song at our church, in times like this you need the Bible. I definitely, and we were just talking about this yesterday at church, we don't get into the political things. We don't get into as much of the, some of the other issues that we don't feel are central. We definitely want to deal with anything the Bible deals with, and if it ends up stepping on anyone's toes, political or otherwise, that's something that we deal with. But we feel there's enough of that going on out there that we just try to keep it focused on the Word. And
I think I've told you this. I've referenced you on my podcast numerous times, because when you talk about the Saul to Paul transition, that one really is striking, because Saul was a guy that was actually holding the coats for those that were stoning, and then all of a sudden becomes Paul. And I feel like in today's movements, whatever's out there, there's got to be that Saul that turns into Paul and says, no. When whoever these protesters are, whoever's vandalizing, there's got to be someone in that group saying, this is not right, stop it right now. And that's the Saul to Paul transition I'm talking about. That's
such a great topic, the Saul to Paul transition. And really, if you looked at all the Sauls in your life and said they're a potential Paul, that might change the way you felt about, dealing with them and responding in anger.
And almost
violence.
Reaches out in a different way. We've seen it in the national too, right? You got these two New Yorkers together, Mamdani, Trump, they actually shake hands. It can happen. Saul becomes Paul at some point.
There you go. So yeah, we tell our church every week we pray for those in authority over us, and that's kind of our emphasis there. And we're looking forward to a really good year, 2026, Lord willing, a new year. If we make it, if the Lord doesn't come back before then, we look forward to a wonderful year ahead of doing big things for Him.
And one more thing about your podcast. Now the RSS feed is out there, right? We've got them on different platforms. Expect others. I find that through my show, when the RSS feed is just out there, other outlets you don't even know about start picking you up. So that's a possibility also.
Is this the kind of thing where if someone listens to one episode, it kind of prompts them to listen to more?
Yes, that's going to happen too. Okay. So you'll get your word, Walking the Word will be more out there, and people will be able to delve into the Word thanks to all of this new movement here.
Yeah, that's great. And a big thank you to all of our listeners this year. I know it's an investment of time. You've got so much you could be listening to, so much you could be doing. Even if you just fall asleep, if I'm your insomnia medication, I want to thank you for that as well, because we're just glad to have everybody spending some time with us on each episode.
And I did not get you on these platforms. I got to give credit to ops manager Matt Sambolin, who worked his tail off to get you on all these different outlets.
Yeah, no, the team here at WMCA Radio is super, and I want to encourage you, pastors and public speakers and whatnot, to consider working with WMCA, because there's really a great big family here, a lot of good things happening. Like you said, Matt, Donna, you, Peter, so many people that I've met. And for those of you who've been in New York a long time, you may remember that I was on this station back in 1999 on a show called the Fundamental Baptist Forum, which was a live show Wednesdays from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. And that's why we had call in, and that's why I'm glad I'm taking these questions that people send in, because I kind of want to get back to connecting with the listeners. So please, any other questions, any topics you want us to deal with, feel free to let us know. We'd love to address that on an upcoming show.
And one last question I have for you, Dr. Joel, is this. It is Advent season, so what can we look forward to as far as the Advent season? I love the story of Advent. I love the story of Christ's birth. It's special every time, and I'm sure you retelling it is even more special for you.
Never get tired of Christmas and the Christmas message, and just was reading today in 1 Timothy 3:16 those amazing words, God was manifest in the flesh. And you think about what Christmas really is there, and how it took God becoming flesh to save our souls. We're so thankful for the true meaning of Christmas. Alex, thank you for a few minutes. I appreciate you being on with me. And to all our listeners, once again, this is Dr. Joel Grassi from Commonwealth Community Baptist Church of the Bronx, and I want to thank each and every one of you for spending this time with me today, walking in the Word.
You've been listening to Dr. Joel Grassi and Walking in the Word Radio, a ministry of Commonwealth Community Baptist Church of the Bronx, New York City. Call our church at 718-839-1000 or visit our website at www.commonwealthbronx.org.